economic science and also be able to teach them trades within this program so they can be able to learn how to be able to start and own and run their own business. Okay, so the thing is, with African American, especially African American people in general, we are $2 trillion a year people. And we don't have one of the 4 major institutions. We don't have all 4 major institutions right that we need right here in Omaha. Or a financial institution, a bank. We need a school. We need a hospital. And we also need a, a school, hospital, supermarket, and yeah, that was it. So just the main 3. That's what we all need, but we need to be able to teach the youth. We need to start with the youth in order to be able to get them built up and set up. So that's my main goals for the nonprofit organization. Now, I've been doing community work for years, actually since I was 19, donating to various nonprofit organizations, doing groundwork. When COVID-19 hit, I was actually one of the few business owners that went out and actually went to go help the people. What gave me the inspiration to run for City Council of District 2 was a situation that actually occurred to me 1 year ago, back in September. I was actually arrested for a crime I did not commit. Now, I actually been studying the science of politics for years now. I've been heavily involved in politics, not as far as wanting to run for anything, because at the same time, I dislike politics because I understood how dirty and how grimy it could be. People will slander your name. People will bring up something from 10 years ago just to hurt you and hurt your business, especially when you're a young, educated black male. They will do anything to target you. So I was arrested for that crime that I did not commit, and I was like, you know what, enough is enough. Our current elected officials aren't doing enough for the people. Our rollback to liberation right now is economics and education. You can't have one or the other. If you got an educated brother, then he can't be able to go out and be able to help the people. They could go arrest him on a BS charge and he gets locked up and he can't do anything about it. When you got a brother that doesn't have the education but has the financial resources, the financial backing, then you get the average rapper, you get the average Negro that goes out and I must go buy this Lamborghini, or I must go buy all these Louis Vuittons. You're not going to get the brother that's going to go back and go feed the community. And that's one of the main things that I want to do, was go take my time, my resources, and go back to the community and be able to feed the people, because being great is not doing it for the people. Okay, and we need more real people that's not going to sell out the community, have our community gentrified, actually come in that knows what they're doing, and be able to help the people. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully that summed everything up, and I'll give the floor to my brother Jonathan over here.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming to our candidate forum today. I also want to thank the Culxr House and Marcy for planning this event and giving us the opportunity to come here and discuss our candidacy to be your next city council representative. My name is Jonathan Latham. I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. I actually grew up attending church right around the corner on 20th and Benny. I played football with the Little Vikes, and I played baseball for Butler Gas YMCA. I started wrestling when I was in the 7th grade at Nathan Hale. I've raced up and down these neighborhood streets barefoot, rang doorbells and ran, and was yelled at when street lights were on and I wasn't home yet, just like the rest of you. I graduated from Omaha Public Schools in 2003, and I have 5 children who are currently attending OPS. My children are a lot of the reason I decided to run. Ranging in age from 17 to 4, I want to make sure Omaha not only gives them, but all of our youth, the best quality of life available. If they're the next generation to inherit our city, what condition do we want to leave it in physically, economically, and socially? Although I grew up in Omaha, I spent most of my early adult life as a member of the armed forces. I felt as if I wasn't going to experience that adequate quality of life, so I joined the Army National Guard 1 month before I graduated high school. I went to Iraq at 19, came back at 20, and I couldn't find a job anywhere that could support my family, having 1 child at that point. After spending 13 months deployed serving my country, finding a stable job should have been the least of my concerns. I'd only dealt with driving countless days and miles up and down main supply routes in Iraq, dealing with IED detonations, and taking and returning small arms fire during an ambush that happened in Mosul. So who would have thought that I couldn't get a job in Omaha paying more than $10 an hour? In fact, during this period, I even applied to be an Omaha police officer. So after an 8-month process of tests and interviews, I received a letter in the mail that said I was no longer a candidate. Continuing to have difficulty with employment and a growing family, I joined active duty at the age of 23 and left for Germany. I ended up going halfway across the world to find opportunities that I didn't feel like I could find right here in my own city. So I understand the importance of creating jobs in the community firsthand. I felt forced to leave Omaha to ensure stability because I didn't feel like there were any other viable options. I felt as if it was my only way to give my family that quality of life that they deserved. So I want every resident to feel like they can have the best opportunity and the best quality of life right here in District 2. I've been through various ups and downs, just like many of you out there. But like many of you, I've persevered. I've made a choice to make a better life for my family. We all must make those better choices as well. Your choice with the next elected officials in the district, city, and state will undoubtedly have a profound effect on how the future of Omaha is shaped. Police reform, economic restructuring are two of my main platform points. However, the social determinants of health is also a key to better quality of life. So this is what the social determinants of health encompass and what they look like through my vision. Economic stability. We'll accomplish that through job creation and retention. Also by continuing to build on the financial literacy classes, like David was mentioning, that are being taught in our community. Even if we bring the jobs here, we must ensure that we manage the resources appropriately to make sure that we're successful. Neighborhood and physical environment. We'll accomplish that by focusing on the Omaha Land Bank and continuing to have the city purchase these dilapidated and boarded up residences. Last count, Omaha Land Bank had over 300 properties that were available to the community, but they have not been sold yet. With that, there needs to be a timeline for the sale and the renovation of those properties in order to raise the property values and overall community appearance. I also want to expand on the Good Neighbor Ordinance to include businesses that are not being properly maintained and appear to be substandard. Right now, they're working on bars that are not within the liquor license criteria, and they're getting those removed from our communities, but I feel that the Good Neighbor is liquor licenses, yard maintenance, and those types of functions that also have the community appearance as well. Education. The schools in this district produce the lowest test scores in the state. Test scores not the only measure of intelligence that should be placed on our children. There needs to be an overhaul in curriculum that takes a holistic approach to education, not just focus on passing state tests and assessments. Also, OPS only has a 66% graduation to college rate. So what happens to that 1/3 that doesn't go to college? We need to start alternative prepping as early as middle school. College isn't for every student, and the sooner we accept that and prepare them, the more successful they will be. Food, again, something David mentioned. We need more access to healthy food choices. Fair Deal is one of the few options that we have in the district, but we need readily accessible options for alternate dietary options such as vegetarian and vegan. Community and social context, getting our identity back in the community. You can click on almost any comment on anything that's about North Omaha and you'll find some type of negative feedback saying that we deserve what's happening to us or any of those types of things from other parts of Omaha. We need to get back our identity as a community. And then also access to health care. COVID-19 is real, mental health is real, physical health is real. Charles Drew does a great job with helping us with our services that we need as far as medical are concerned, but we also need to start focusing on mental health as a community as well, getting some of these children to who they need to speak with at an earlier time. So District 2 requires a councilperson who can work with all parties involved to make our community stronger. That'll include the mayor, police department, and other council members, most of all the entire constituency, regardless of race, gender, orientation, or occupation. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering your questions to the best of my ability.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank the Culxr host for giving us the opportunity to have this forum today. Also would like to thank Alexis for moderating the event. And for those of you who may not know me, my name is Juanita Johnson. I'm going to start off by stating that my David Mitchell and then Jonathan Latham have already pretty much summed up some of the things that is so much needed for District 2. And I'm not going to regurgitate all of those things, and I'm just going to focus on some of the things that I feel that is very important and add substance to what they've already said. So good afternoon. First, my name is Juanita Johnson, and I'm here today to announce my intent to run for City Council Omaha District 2. One key component in being a good leader is being a good listener. For decades, District 2 has asked for basic human needs in pursuit of happiness. And a majority of their requests have now become a dream deferred. I believe I'm the best candidate for the job because I listen. I'm also a take action person. I like to get things done. These skills are demonstrated in my role as president of Long School Neighborhood Association and 24th Street Corridor Alliance. Also, my professional work duties are contingent upon my ability to listen and execute critical plans that involve the safety of others. Now let's put my current job in perspective. During COVID-19, the city was closed while I and my job roles, were very critical to the industry of transportation. And I was considered a key essential worker. So I worked every day during the time that Omaha, Nebraska was closed due to COVID-19. As City Council, I stand for you when I bring your voices to the City Council meeting. As City Council, I stand for you to ask the difficult question that occurs when new processes are implemented. For example, the new process to collect waste in Omaha, which is an automated process. I stand for you as City Council to look at the City Council agenda and inform and educate you on the issues that will directly impact the day-to-day life, your day-to-day life. Now, I need you to help me stand with your donations to the campaign. I need you to help me stand and become a volunteer during the campaign. I also need you to help me stand and attend City Council meetings. I need you to help me stand and cast your vote. Juanita Johnson, City Council, District 2, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. David, do you want to introduce our newest panelist?
Yes,
Okay,
this is my oldest son, David Mitchell III. So, want to say hi?
All right,
Well,
welcome.
he's shy. That's my youngest son, Exton Mitchell, and that's my wife.
Oh, wow.
Okay, thank you all for your introductions and your platform. I'll give you a little bit of overview of how the topics we're going to talk about today. The first one is going to be the budget, the city budget in general. The city council members play a crucial role within what is set and what is allocated in terms of funding for our community. So we'll cover that first. Second will be economic development. Each of you have wove economic development into everything that you have just said, so it'll be very nice to touch base on that. And then lastly, we'll talk about transparency. As with any government roles, it's very important that we hold our elected officials accountable for serving the community and serving the people that vote for them. And so we'll have a few questions regarding transparency as well, and how you feel about that and what your platform will be to address those items. After we talk about those three panel discussions, earlier this week, Culxr House hosted a community journalist training, and some of those members who participating in the training will be able to ask some press questions to our candidates here. And then finally, we'll open up to questions from the audience. And so as you hear things or as you learn more about our candidates and you have questions or want to ask more, please keep those in mind. At the end, we will have a moment for you to ask those questions for them. All right. The first topic of discussion is the city budget, which has been a very timely discussion right now because the city council just voted on it within the past week. It was also very, I will say the literacy of understanding how the city budget works is very hard for the average person to understand. And so even those who went to the meeting to state their opinion, to state their for or against, it is still hard to understand what is the role that city council plays within it. And so I would ask each of you to spend 3 minutes talking about One, how do you interpret the city's priorities, and what is the biggest change you would like to make to the budget as it was presented? And we can start with Juanita first.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to review the budget, and after looking at it and summing it all up, I saw the city recognizing safety and protecting the community, providing a service and protecting the community as being the top two priorities. That's where they gave the most money to. So that tells me that their area of interest is to secure us as individuals, but when there's a problem. So their interest is primarily focused on there being a problem. So if I were to look at that budget and look at what needs to be improved or what alternatives could be done, I would recommend that we increase the budget in these two categories. One, the library, and two, mental health. Now I would ask that, or many of you probably would be thinking, why would I pick those two areas? Those two areas, I picked those two areas because they represent preventative measures. They say that, before a problem occurs, let's put money into the pot to prevent something from escalating. The library has been the backbone of District 2. It houses information. It provides District 2 residents with computers, technology, assistance, and they are able to provide education after our kids are, after they leave from school. They go to the library, such as Charles Washington Library, and they're able to go there and pick up a book. If they have some questions about the word in the book, the librarian is able to assist them with defining what that is. Oh, I am running out of time, no? Okay. Okay, so let me get to the point. So the library is very crucial with providing this preventative measure so that we don't have to explore the possibility of kids running into a situation of crime. Mental health, the same thing. When there is I spoke to someone about a week ago, and they told me that this is someone, a correctional officer at the Omaha County Jail. They said 93% of the people coming in and out of the jail had some type of effect of mental health about them. They also stated that these people, they come in and out of the correctional facility all the time. So again, if we were to provide more funding toward mental health, again, this would be a preventive way to address this concern, and then we wouldn't have to focus so much of police and all of that. And so that would be my recommendation, is to increase the library funding by 5%, increase mental health by 5%. These measures would ensure preventive measures so that we would not have to deal with it on the back end with police and other things. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so looking at the overall city budget, I have to say that the overall priority of the city is accurately portrayed by what's being proposed. So 43% of the overall $1.2 billion budget is directed towards public works, equaling roughly $526 million of that. So $39 million is assigned for street maintenance to include street cleanings, snow removal, and pavement maintenance. $10 million goes to residential street repairs, so all our streets in our local neighborhoods are working on being repaired. Another $32 million goes to solid waste disposal and composting of yard waste. We're actually starting to get new 96-gallon containers next week under the new waste management contract. So the largest portion of the public works budget is $232 million, which is for sewer revenue improvement to include a federally mandated project to reduce overflow from the sewer system. We all know last year snow removal, having adequate street clearance, and pothole repair was especially bad in Omaha. Anyone who drives our roads knows that street maintenance is a high priority. I know I called the city a few times about potholes that my children could have swam in last year. And I've also cracked my oil pan on my motorcycle twice riding out here on these roads because they are in dire need of repair. So we can't deny the importance of waste and sewage concerns either. Trash collection over the past few months has been kind of slow, and I know there were a couple of days that were missed in my neighborhood alone that there was no warning or there was nothing saying that we weren't going to be able to collect today. So as far as community service programs, the city supports about $2 million currently, with the city council making amendments just last week at the meeting that they added another $90,000 to community programs. So out of that $2 million, $900,000 of that goes to summer jobs programs, and over $600,000 is going to workforce solutions as grants. That's still not enough. So I would ensure that we as a district found a way to expand on these community service funds, whether through the city, private entities, or federal grants, to highlight a focus on that quality of life that I had previously mentioned. All right, so with 43% being designated for public works, public safety takes up the next largest amount, with 13% and 10% going to the police and fire departments respectively. So we look at large numbers like $161 million going and $122 million going to these entities. And when we account for these dollars, we see the majority of those costs are personnel. So 88% of the police budget is employee compensation, wages, pensions, health and medical, and other employee-related expenses. So only 12% of that $161 million for the police actually goes to equipment, and that's to include the cruisers and the body-worn cameras that we all desperately need to have in case we do have incidents and run-ins with the police. So if I was to adjust the police budget, I would like more clarification as to why there's $15 million increase in the Office of the Chief. So they cut $6 million from criminal investigations, and the criminal investigations division includes the gang, narcotic, and SVU units. So if we're serious about resolving the cycles that we have in our city and this district surrounding these events, that these officers that should be compensated the most, so why do we have a $6 million cut in those particular areas? So when we speak of transparency and accountability, that's the question that I would like answered, and that's where I would adjust the budget at if I was on the city council.
So the city budget, and I don't want to also regurgitate too much of what he said, because that's also my main platform and what I believe in, especially when it comes to reallocating funds and things of that nature. The thing about the budget is they make it complicated for the average person to read and understand. They released this budget, it was 450 pages. What average person is going to sit at their home reading 450 pages? Most people these days don't even want to go read a book that's only 20 pages, and you expect me to read a book that's, pretty much 450 pages. So they make sure they make this budget very complicated so the average person can't be able to get involved to be able to study this budget. But their priorities is set at exactly what Sister Juanita said, is security, policing, and fire. So they want to have the aftermath of what already happened. Because when you got mental health, when you got shootings, when you got gang violence, that is a symptom of white supremacy. So instead of focusing on policing too much policing, why not cut the tree at the root? Why not stop the problem now before it gets too out of hand, and then we got a straight school to prison pipeline where we're sending our kids straight to prison? Okay, so that's where the problem lies. Now, when you look at this budget, the Omaha Police Department gets about 37.9% of the city's budget. And exactly like this brother said, most of the money that comes in is through sales and use taxes and property taxes. We get about $1.2 billion a year for our overall budget. And a majority of that budget is going to the Omaha Police Department. Chris Jerome, the president of the city council board, was just like, I want to take 1.2% of this budget and reallocate it to mental health and education, which was something I was actually in agreement with. Now, I thought the budget should have been way bigger than that, because Only $80 million out of the $160 million that the Omaha Police Department gets goes to the actual uniformed officers. So we have more than $2 million to be able to reallocate to mental health. Well, the lone black guy on the city council, Ben Gray, said, no, we got a war on gangs. But we can't fight the mental health before it gets started. We can't educate our children before they get involved in a gang. We can't help our children with political science, economic science before they get involved in anything outside of their home. Okay? So, where the funds need to go. When you look at the human resources and relations, about 0.3% of our budget goes to that. That needs to go up. Okay, I would at least have to say at least by another 2 or 3%, like how the sister was saying over here. Also our library, which only gets about 3.5% of the city budget, needs to at least get another 2%, because back when I was a kid, that's where I used to go all the time. After school, go to the library, get the library cards. They used to have the little VHSs. You could go rent the VHSs with the library card, things of that nature. Also, another thing that a lot of people miss is 1.2% of the budget goes to law. Why not spend some of that budget that goes to, why not spend some of that money that goes to the law enforcement on law? If someone gets involved with a crime, or if someone gets charged with a crime that they did not commit, or if they did commit, where do they get the attorney from if they can't afford one? They get a public defender, they get a state appointed attorney. So if we don't have enough money to hire enough public defenders, then we might only have 40 public defenders, but we got 100 prosecutors. So we got more prosecutors that's able to prosecute the people, but we don't have enough public defenders able to save the people. So we got 1,000 people, hypothetically speaking, that goes in for a crime. But we don't have enough public defenders to accurately defend those people. So that's where the budget needs to go, is to law, human rights and relations, also the library, like how the sister was saying, in education.
Okay, all right. So now these next 3 questions I have are for specific individuals, and then we'll go back to a question that all 3 of you will answer. Juanita, you are up first.
Oh, wow.
The mayor has spoken a lot about how the city does fund community programs in response to the community's efforts to defund the police and allocate that money more towards resources that help address it at the root. Do you believe that response to be adequate, knowing that the general fund from the city, where most of the city's community programming receives its funding, is a pass-through for federal grants?
Well, the mayor has spoke a lot about how the city does fund community programs. And overall, when we talk about community programs, that in itself does a great, does good deed. When we look at One Omaha, One Omaha is a community program which Alexis, to my right, is over. And that program was designed to help neighborhoods navigate through the city system and kind of provide them with a backbone for guidance and assistance, again, with their day-to-day lives. But that surely those community programs, while they're good in itself, we still have this problem whereby there's a problem with police relationships with African Americans or people of color. So that by itself, logically speaking, the community problems, the community programs are not touching the surface of this old problem again. With the police relationships with people of color, it still is not doing enough to address those concerns. Now, I'm not taking away from the community programs, but it's simply not addressing those needs, that particular need. So I think the reason for the request to defund the police, the reason why everyone is in an uproar to have those funds reduced isn't so much that they are in disagreement with the overall goal of the police, which is to serve and protect. I think the reason for the request is because the city, as well as local officials, have not publicly come out and say, yes, Omaha is not like, it's just like any other city. They have the same problems with police relations and people of color. I think that if the city of Omaha and their public officials would publicly come out and say, yes, we have a problem, then we could then begin to work at the problem. If you can't identify a problem, then there's no way you can fix it. So I would say again, the community programs, all of them, great, but they don't address the problem that our immediate problem, which is relationships with the police and the people of color. That has not been addressed. It still needs to be addressed. I work with the city police department as a citizen patroller. So I know that they're good people in the police department. I also know that in any industry where you have people, there's going to be situations where somebody will do something outside of the norm. But most organizations, most industries, they identify that there are some loopholes, and they're always looking at ways to fix and improve their processes. So again, the Omaha Police Department in itself, what it's doing, yeah, we have to recognize that there's a problem. And we also need to look at coming together as a community to help embrace and make recommendations to fix that problem. And that has to be done with the police and with the community.
The next question is for Jonathan. Jonathan, a common complaint from residents of Council District 2 is that North Omaha rarely receives funding required to improve the quality of life. If you look at what North Omaha looks like now compared to 10 years ago, compared to 20 years ago, much of that is the same. You cannot solve that yourself alone. However, within the position that you're running for, how would you make sure that this issue is represented in the budget in a way that makes Council District 2 residents feel seen and heard?
So back to the quality of life that I keep reiterating on, that's what we definitely need as District 2 residents. Once I made the decision to run for office, the first thing that I did was I pulled up a district map. The residents in District 2, actually, according to the way things are zoned, have one of the most economically compensated areas in the city. When people look at District 2, we don't readily identify everything that encompasses North Omaha. The Capital District is zoned as District 2. TD Ameritrade Arena is zoned as District 2, and the CHI Arena is also zoned as District 2. So how is it that the city's first enhanced employment district, which came with that area actually being allowed to collect an extra tax down there, how does that in our area, but we suffer the most to create and maintain jobs throughout the rest of the district? When this area was developed, it should have been mandated that a certain amount of employees come from this area that are being hired at those businesses in the Capital District. It's not a new concept of trying to get our residents jobs. It's been going on for the last 10 years or so. So when they built up that area, they should have compensated the residents of the district with giving us jobs there. Speaking of that extra tax, it's primarily used to finance public infrastructure and other development in that area. So again, how are you collecting an extra tax in one place and you're not allowing it to be dispersed through the entire district? Who was at the negotiating table for us when that was proposed? TD Ameritrade hosts the College World Series. How much of that revenue is coming back into our district when we're hosting the College World Series? Someone somewhere had to agree for this to be built in our district. Again, like I said, who was at the negotiating table when these things were going on? Revenue made in our district needs to circle back and support our district. And then also CHI Center just recently started hosting NCAA games. So same concept. When they're hosting these games in our district, why are we not being financially compensated as a district for hosting these events in our district? So we're not using the resources that we already have in our district to fund what needs to be done. We do get $160,000 a year in what is called turnback taxes for those arenas and those venues being in District 2. But $160,000 compared to the millions that these events bring in is paltry. To reflect in that budget, I would recommend that the entertainment tax that they charge down in the Capital District be raised to 2%. So I know people don't like raising taxes, but 2% equals 16 cents on $8. So if you're down there buying food or drink, 16 cents. Nobody's gonna notice 2% increase on something that you're gonna do anyway. So, and at least half of that should be placed in a district fund for other infrastructure projects like the 24th Street project, or trying to purchase land in the Omaha Land Bank, or redeveloping 75 North. We can use those funds to help redevelop this district since those buildings are already there. And then also the next time contracts are up to be negotiated for the NCAA tournaments and for the College World Series, we need to have a representative at the table discussing how we can get some of those funds reimbursed back into the district.
You have 30 seconds, that's perfect. All right, David, another question about reallocation. The largest call we have heard in Omaha about reallocation is to see the police budget divided into community programs like mental health, education, and quality of life programming. I'll get that. Do you agree with this line of thought? And are there specific programming you would recommend for that funding to be directed to?
Yeah, so I completely agree with that line of thought, and I also would like to add something onto that as well. On the educational side, what we need is we need more sciences for the youth, especially if we're going to focus on education, because if we put $1 million into a broken educational system, nothing will never come out of it. Especially when you got we've got about 50% of young African American males being diagnosed with ADHD, and then they put them in special education, so they take them out of a learning environment, and then they segregate that child and put them in a different learning environment. So what we need more money to be spent to make sure we can get more black teachers, because statistics show that if one black child is taught at least by one black teacher, his chances of graduation goes up by 30%. So we need to make sure we can spend more money to get more black teachers put in these schools. And I had a brother ask me the other day, well, where do we find the teachers at? Brother, you ain't never been down to a barber shop? You ain't never been down to a community center? Go inside of a barber shop right now and go listen to what the brothers in there is kicking knowledge all day. They'll talk to you all day about the comedic science. They'll talk to you all day. They'll read you the Metanessa. You'll walk in there. They'll talk to you about the Bible. They'll talk to you about anything that you need to know. Political science, economic science, all you need to go in there. All you need to do is just go in there. But the thing is, like I said earlier today, if you have one or the other, you can't do it. Okay, education and economics. So a lot of these brothers are heavily educated. They just don't have that economic side to it. So when we put that money in an educational budget, like I said, there were 6 sciences that I want to focus on. Agricultural and economical science, to be able to teach the children how to be able to grow their own food and how to be able to measure the nutritional measurements inside that food, and nutritional and dietary science as well. So not only how to be able to measure that nutrition in that food, also why it's important to be able to eat healthy. Also military science. We also need economic science. Political science. These are the sciences that we need to be able to teach the youth so they can be able to grow, especially if we want to see a development in more small, locally owned businesses, especially like this brother here, right here is saying. We got all these corporations that could get placed in District 2, and you're telling me we don't have a mandate on how many people in that district is supposed to work there. That is something that I will be fighting for, especially if I'm sitting at the negotiation table. If you're going to put something in my district, you're going to come down here and you're going to buy up my land. I don't want to see Caucasian people from District 6, District 7 that already got Bank in the West, that already got all these good headquarters coming down here to come work in our neighborhoods. We need brothers and sisters to be able to build up, go work at those factories, go work at those headquarters, and be able to be successful in their own community, be able to make money in their own community and spread money throughout their own community. So education is my biggest thing on that, but that's just, like I said, everything else I completely agree with, what they brought through, especially Chris Jim on that one.
All right, so this next question will be for everyone, and this is the last one of our budget section. Jonathan, we'll start with you, then we'll go David, then Juanita. A trend throughout the country is a process called participatory budgeting, and I have seen this taking place in cities like Seattle, there's Portland as well, more larger cities that are progressive. But what that process is that they allow the people to determine what a specific portion of the city's budget is allocated towards. And so, one, I want to ask each of you, is a participatory budgeting process something you agree with? If so, how would you help implement this process during your time on city council?
So participatory budgeting is something that I'm definitely an advocate for, and it seems like that's something that's already being implemented, although it may be minimal. After the city council meeting on the 11th, President Jerem stated that he had listened to the residents of his district, and that's why he proposed a $2 million decrease in the police funding. That's how representatives are supposed to work for you. Listen to your concerns, come to the best possible solution, and present that recommendation to those who manage how they are set in place. But to be able to implement this on the city council, the members would have to have a great working relationships with each other regardless of what district they represent. If one of our residents feels strongly about something, I would have to convey that accurately and articulately to ensure that proposal received the required votes. Like I said, with the budget meeting, it was 4-3 for a lot of those police funding and the amendments that were coming across. So why is it that there are 3 council members that don't agree with having the funds taken either out of the city's cash reserves or having Councilman Jerem's proposal where the funds go to mental health? We have to be able to come together as a council in order to get those amendments and those changes pressed. Also, with the constant emails and constant phone calls and having regular town hall meetings would be necessary to facilitate those. I can't remember the last time that there actually was a town hall meeting where someone was sitting down listening to the residents and listening to what they had to say. So the issue isn't hearing what the residents have to say about the budget or how they feel. A person on the council is just that, they're just an individual. They're gonna need the entire community to come together and listen to what the concerns are, and they're gonna need to be able to accurately portray that to city council when it comes time to get budgets approved and when it comes time to try to get funding increased for these community service programs as we're trying to get taken care of now.
Alright, so I had to make sure I was gonna be up here and my son was gonna be climbing all over me. So with the participatory budget, that actually stems, see, in order to be able to make sure or know if something is actually gonna work or not, you gotta look at its origins, you gotta see where it was implemented at. So when you study the origins of PB, it actually stems from small place called Porto Alegre in Brazil. It was actually founded by the Brazilian Workers' Party. They founded that in 1989. So when you actually study that and see how it actually benefited their community, you saw when they implemented it, their sewage from houses expanded from 75% to 90% within the span of 10 years. Their schools quadrupled within the span of 10 years because you had more people getting involved with the political process, wanting to be able to come out and demand where their funds was going to be spent. And I'm surprised something like that is already put in place. Especially if we're going to elect you and we're going to put you in a certain political position, an elected office, you should be working for your constituents. You should be doing exactly what the constituents want, even if you don't agree with it. But say 51% of your constituents say, hey, this is what we want done. That's how that budget should move. It shouldn't be, well, I think it's in my best interest. No, who elected you and put you in that seat? So I'm actually surprised something like that, it hasn't already been put in place. And I 100% agree with what the brother was saying over here, Brother Jonathan. We need this to be put in place as soon as possible, especially that's how it will work when I'm in office. Anything that comes, any potential amendment to any type of budget, I will make sure I present it to the people. I'm not going to present them 450 pages like how they want us to do. I'm going to present them the most important things in that budget so we can all, as a people, be able to sit down and break down that budget. Then that's what we can be able to do the town hall meetings. That's what we can be able to do community meetings and see where people's mindsets is at. So that's exactly how I want it to be done. I will give my opinion on what I want to see done to the budget and why, and whatever the community says, I will just go with it.
District 2 is primarily made up of a poverty stricken area. So what does this mean? This means that there is a lot of federally funded opportunities in this area to help people to pick themselves up and have a better life. With that being said, yes, I most certainly would involve them in the discussion of the budget. I can't help someone if I don't have them at the table and have them included in what is necessary to make a bona fide strategy to help the overall situation. So again, the participatory way of doing business to further strengthen the budget, the City of Omaha budget, is something that I would certainly recommend. So how would I implement that? I would meet with my constituents and find out what their needs are. What are they recommending? What are they saying is needed? I would then go to the city departmental heads and see what they are looking at and what their objectives are. I would then come back to District 2 and share that information collected from the departmental heads. And I would mesh those two views and then go back to the budget itself and advocate something that would be more equitable than it is today as it relates to the budget and making sure that District 2 is better represented. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes our budget. Shake it out a little bit, readjust yourselves in your chairs. We got through. All right, so the next topic, which is crucially important to Council District 2, is economic development, because that affects all of our lives in so many different ways possible and our families. So this first question is for everyone, and we'll start with David, and then we'll come this way. Considering your backgrounds, what skill sets are you able to bring to the seat of the council that makes you feel able to advocate for economic development in North Omaha?
So the skill sets that I'm able to bring to the table and why I feel so confident in this position is due to me having that financial literacy and actually that economic science background with me. That's something that we really need. We need a brother that's going to go in there unapologetic and know exactly what we need to do to be able to get our community back on track. We need a brother that's going to go in there and make sure we can be able to fight for these labor-based jobs, for any industrial plants, as long as it's not killing the people like how they're doing at OPPD, to be able to get placed down here so we can be able to make money and then set restrictions to make sure people that live in that community can also work at that spot. So with me being a business owner of 10 years, I started back when I was a teenager, opened up my first store when I was 19, and me knowing how to expand that business. I know and understand if you're gonna run a city, you must run it like a business. And if the business isn't running right, the city isn't gonna run right. We need more people in our community employed. We need more people in our community that's gonna be able to go, that can be able to support our black-owned businesses. There's a lot of people that say support black-owned businesses, but the majority of the people in the community don't have enough money to go buy your shea butter. A majority of the people in the community don't have enough money to go buy your Vaseline that you're selling. We don't have enough money to go buy your candles you're selling. Okay, we don't got $20 to go buy because rent is due next week, and this $20 is all I got. So we need more job opportunity. We need somebody that actually has a background like myself that can be able to go in there and know exactly what we're going to do and what hard choices need to happen to the community.
So, when considering economic development, a few skill sets come to mind. First is I have an entrepreneurial spirit, the ability to adapt and overcome from any type of stressful situation. So prior to COVID causing all the chaos this past spring, I was working with the Startup Collaborative, which is a nonprofit organization designed to showcase Midwest tech startups and help them thrive. Working with them, the biggest thing that I learned was the importance of market research. That translates into running for office in the form of knowing what people want before you just jump out and act on it. It's the initial ear to the ground stage where you hear and take in suggestions to make your product better, or in our case, our district. So along with that entrepreneurial mindset comes that ability to think outside the box and also analyze. All right, I'm a numbers person. I take an analytical rather than emotional approach to all situations. So I previously mentioned making full use of all district assets, especially the Capital District. Since it is officially labeled an entertainment district, I believe that we need to use that location to spearhead the legalization of gambling. Lottery and Keno proceeds brought in over $4 million last year, with about $475,000 of that going to the police department. What makes lottery and Keno legal forms of gambling, where there's far less skill needed to pick numbers than to play table games such as blackjack and poker? I'm not advocating for slot machines at this point, but if we open up the door to a poker room or a venue of that sort, where the house can collect the ante and call it a form of tax, again, that's more revenue for the city. So we're actually technically leaving money on the table, literally. Those games, in my opinion, should be classified as games of skill under state law instead of games of luck. So, as I previously stated, that economic development is definitely one of the key factors to that quality of life that we're all trying to reach for so much in District 2.
In 1993, I became a member of Blacks in Government. That nonprofit organization has provided me with tools, unmeasurable tools, to know extensively about economics. With that background, I not only gathered the information, but I was able to apply that information and become an entrepreneur myself. I created, self-taught myself how to build computers and then sell them right here in District 2. I did that from 1999 all the way up until 2005. So I was one of the early educators regarding getting computers in North Omaha to further enrich the lives of people within my own community. The computers that I sold after refurbishing them were for about $300. Those computers consisted of software, printer, and also a modem at that time, so that they could get on the internet and also have access to learning about technology. So I am a self-made entrepreneur. So I know what entrepreneurship is, and having that type of experience brings me a long way. Also, because I'm involved with the Blacks in Government, I was able to forecast that North Omaha, specifically North 24th Street, about 5-6 years ago, was going to have the opportunity to, where the city of Omaha would bring their attention to this area that had been left unmaintained, left alone for many years. That's why the area is filled with vacant lots and things of that nature. However, I had the foresight to see that this area would be an area of concentration, and created the 24th Street Corridor Alliance. 24th Street Corridor Alliance has been in existence for since 2017. We're a nonprofit organization. We have a meeting once a month, and the meeting is to provide knowledge, training for business owners as well as neighborhood leaders. Thank you.
All right, this next question is for you, David. As a business owner in Omaha, can you talk to us about how you chose your business location, and would you consider expanding your business here in North Omaha?
It's a good question. So when you deal with retail, especially on an electronics-based video games, the main point of location that you want to choose is anywhere that has a middle-class base, because that's the main people that's going to purchase your products. We're selling used items, and we're also buying in used items from people that walk in off the street. When it comes to, say, if I was to place it in the high-class area, no one in the high-class area is really going to buy it because they're buying all their stuff off Amazon, they're buying all their stuff digital, versus everybody in middle class, I would just go buy it used, save $20, $30, and then return it, and then, you know, be able to swap that game out for something else. So that's how I choose my locations. When it came to when I purchased gamers 2 years back, because before that I had my own video game store called Game Repair Shop. What I wanted to do was actually, I looked at their numbers to see exactly what locations was performing the best. So then that's when I chose the one on 124th Center, because that's a middle class area and that was the highest performing location. I chose the one off of North 27th Street in Lincoln, Nebraska. The newest one that we have right now that they never had before was West Rose Mall, because I always wanted to have some sort of business inside the mall. About 3 to 4 months ago, I announced that I was going to open up a store location in North Omaha. It was going to be off of 50th and Ames, where that Walmart is located at right now. Who here remember that US Cellular that used to be on that corner over there? So that US Cellular shut down not too long ago. I was actually going to take over that space and open up a Gamers right there. We had a deal planned out. We had everything ready to go. I was going to sign into a 5-year lease. I was going to be able to bring in more job opportunities, be able to employ more people that live in the community, because I do employ people that live in the community, but they got to drive all the way out to West Rose Mall, or they got to bus all the way out to West Rose. So I wanted something more deeper into the community. And when that happened, I was going to sign the lease. Some Arab people came in saying, hey, I want a 10-year lease. And now they're going to open up a laundromat there now. So I'm out of that deal, and I'm actually currently looking for another space to be able to put down here. But what I want to do first and focus on first is more of, because I can always open up another type of business in another industry. What I want to do is I really want to focus on a labor-based business. Like I said before, if I open up too deep, if I open it up off of 24th or off of 30th, you said 2 minutes? Okay.
2 seconds.
Okay, 2 seconds. So if I open it up off of 24th and 30th, a lot of people wouldn't be able to afford the products I will be selling. So when Soul's Pawn Shop or 4 Aces, they open up down here in North Omaha, what they're doing is they're pretty much just buying all the products to ship it out to their stores out west. So that was kind of like the hardest thing, was actually being able to find another space that would be reasonable to place down here in North Omaha, or being able to open up a labor-based business that's not a convenience store that sells liquor to the people. So that's exactly what I wanted to do.
This next question is for you, Juanita. A hugely important part of economic development process is the guidance city council members offer their constituents to ensure that they are prepared to access these important opportunities. Can you tell us what your partnerships with community members will look like in an effort to support North Omaha economic development?
My partnership would look like engaging the community. They would have, I would make sure that their voices would be heard first. I would make sure that I would be having conversations with them on a regular basis. My experience as a leader in North Omaha, most specifically District 2, I've seen a lot of political moves that have been made where far too often the residents have not had any time to say what their needs are, what their wants are, or any of that. Again, I'm going to continue to reinforce this fact that people need to have a say in everything that goes on regarding everything. I mean, economics, schooling, whatever. You have to have people at the table. I don't know why we've gotten to this point where we think that we can sit in a glass ivory tower and make decisions for people. Those decisions will impact those people. I mean, there's no way you can adequately or effectively help anyone if you're not on the ground talking to them. You have to engage people in the discussion from the bottom up. That's what I would do, and that's what I would advocate for. I don't see any way this community, this district can change until that is done across the board.
All right, and finally, Jonathan. In regards to economic development, density and housing plays a huge role in how we create support for businesses and able to have things like grocery stores and things within the community for amenities. Can you tell us what your vision for housing looks like in North Omaha and how you will ensure that the community can participate in the housing efforts so that we can have development without displacement?
Housing in North Omaha is something that always comes up on the ballot, something that I recently struggled with myself. And the main points of concern are always where and how do I want my kids to grow up. So regardless of any outside circumstances and influences, we're more or less products of our environment. When I first moved back to Omaha, I lived in an apartment building downtown. Although it was excellent as far as access to businesses, it didn't fit the requirements that I needed having a large family. The location I was in was perfect for young professionals growing up, you know, the single ones that are graduating college and starting out on their own. But what about those that have families already? So where do we raise a large family in North Omaha? The way our district boundaries are set up, we're cut off at Florence, we're cut off at Benson, and we're cut off at Dundee. I was fortunate enough to find a home down here in this area that actually suited my needs, but I don't feel as if it's a forever home. That's when I started looking into what the Omaha Land Bank actually had to offer. So there's an area of Omaha that they own that's right next to Adams Park. It's undeveloped, and they own about 20 lots over there. That land is close to the heart of North Omaha and can be developed into a housing community that's going to increase livability. So if we were to develop a housing area over there next to Adams Park by using the Omaha Land Bank, it would force the investors to build infrastructure around that to protect their investment. So they're going to have to build grocery stores, they're going to have to build gyms, they're going to have to build healthy food options, they're going to have to build those things around that if they were to invest in infrastructure around that area of Adams Park. So with that revitalization, again, that's going to help the community become stronger as a whole, and Adams Park is a prime spot to start building land. Like I said, the Omaha Land Bank has over 300 properties that they have for sale. So we need to start finding out why those properties are not being sold or who they're being sold to, what the plans are, and helping get that cleared up so that we can make our neighborhoods better and increase the livability of housing down here in North Omaha.
All right, and then our final question for the economic development portion. I know it's this fly up here. It's not nice. Okay, so as you all know, we have a lot of programming that focuses on job readiness and entrepreneurship within North Omaha. That is something that has always been on the ballot ticket or a political campaign that you hear about when it comes time to. Do you believe that these programs have been successful in creating positive economic development? And if not, what alternatives would you recommend? And we can go this way. Juanita, Jonathan, David.
First, I would like to say I don't think the programs have provided us with the necessary tools for us to be ready, job ready. I say this because when we look at COVID-19 today, small businesses, most of them, the numbers are out in terms of them being eligible or the fact that they were unable to apply for PPE and different things. While 24th Street Corridor Alliance did provide information so that small business owners could have the information that they needed to apply for these grants, there were other things that they missed. There were other things that they had not prepared for in such a time as this. And so therefore, as we're gonna see throughout Omaha, there's gonna be a large variety or a large number of small businesses that will not succeed after COVID-19. And that's because we are not, as a city, providing the necessary tools for small business to thrive. So that would be my answer. No, we're not ready. Thank you.
I believe the programs that have been put in place for economic growth are essential to the growth community. The Summer Step Up program has been essential in keeping countless youths off the streets and employed during the summer. So I've got a 17-year-old and his friends both have used Step Up in the past to keep summer jobs and keep occupied during the summer in order to maintain staying off the streets and doing other things besides being gainfully employed and being active, productive citizens in the community. And the city council recently increased that effort over the last year by $400,000. So like I said, the 2020 budget Step Up program had $500,000. In the 2021 proposed budget, they're giving $900,000 to the Step Up fund. So the city is stepping up and increasing, trying to help out with those programs to help with economic growth. But we need to find alternative ways to bring employment for jobs to other residents. So we're helping out the youth, but we have more than just the youth in our communities. We have other residents that also are going to need to help and maintain jobs. So again, like I said, I'm going back to this capital district and how they're labeling themselves as that employment enhancement district. If you're an employment enhancement district, why are we not seeing that employment enhanced throughout the entire district? We're not the ones benefiting from it. But if we can attract and maintain more businesses and vendors throughout North Omaha, we'll be able to provide those jobs that we need. So like David was talking about, if we can attract those businesses down here, then we can get people that want to hire us as employees, and we can help spread that wealth throughout the district, improving that quality of life. This will come, and it'll increase the rebuilding of infrastructure, and it'll help collaborate with more employment readiness organizations. So although the Startup Collaborative headquarters is just a bit outside of our district on Carnagra Drive, they are definitely an alternative that I would use when it comes to entrepreneurship in Omaha. Back in November, I cold texted one of the founders with an idea that I had, and within a week, I was in her office making plans for a business startup right here in Omaha. I was even invited to an event called Get Started Omaha right before COVID hit, and that was with the help of Cox Communications. And if you won the promotion contest, then you were awarded $25,000 towards your startup to help get things off the ground. So our city has the resources that we need to ensure economic development is obtained. We just need to make sure that we use those resources and bring them down to District 2 and promote those throughout the community.
So that's actually a very good question, and my answer to that question, as plain as possible, is yes, the programs have worked, but as soon as the programs really work, they either start to defund the program or they completely stop the program. The only program that I really see going on right now is the Step Up program, like how the brother was talking about right here. But my only issue that I have with the Step Up program is when they go back to school, then what? Okay, they still have free time after school. They could go hit the streets. They could do anything that they wanted to do. What actually kept me off the streets was when I started to work a job back when I was 14 years old. It was a door-to-door sales job called Teams of Tomorrow. They used to come pick us up, so we didn't have to actually drive nowhere, and we used to actually be able to go out and go sell door to door. I thought that program was something that was very successful and actually helped me out. Not only that, the person who owned the program sat down and gave me business skills, sat down and taught me how to be able to run and own my own business, because he wasn't trying to create a slave where you come work for me for the rest of your life and that's it. Okay, so what we need to see, because one of the things that they took out of our community, we used to have a school down here, I want to say it was off of 30th, called Tech High. Tech High actually used to have trade programs within that school. So we had auto body, we had plumbing, we had electrician, we had carpentry, we had contractors. So we had people being able to go to that school and be able to graduate certified as a plumber, certified as an electrician, certified as a carpenter, because these are the skills that pays the bills, okay? My grandmother, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my great-grandpa, my great-uncle was all able to go to school, all able to go to Tech High and graduate and be able to live comfortably, be able to buy houses. Now we got people rushing to college. And the thing about the problem with college anyways is about 30% of what they offer in college is what you actually need to live life, is what you actually need to be able to pay bills. I could go to college and look at and study crickets. What job am I really going to get after college studying crickets? We got 93% of people that's going to college not working in the field that they graduate in. So we need to start young, because like Frederick Douglass said, It's easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men. Let's not wait until they're destroyed by the education system. Let's not wait until they're destroyed by the police department, and let's start them young, and let's focus on them young. So I believe the Step Up program is a really good program, and I'm also still trying to get my program launched, because my program is going to go further than the Step Up program, because we're actually trying to teach these kids how to run their own business. Not send them to go work to McDonald's, not send them to go work to Burger King and learn how to be good slaves. I want more neighborhood businesses in this community. That's what I want to see.
All right, so we're gonna take a 3-minute break and handle this fly. If you please stay here, we're gonna come back and talk about transparency, and then we'll open it up for questions for the candidates here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Juanita, you ready? All right.
Hey, how are you? Yes, I do. I got some tea. That's what I need. What I need.
Okay, so we will return back with transparency. And again, restrooms are right here down this hall if anyone needs to use it. We also have bottled water in the back if you're feeling thirsty, please help yourself. Okay, so this next one is for everyone. And in the time where we would say local politics have grown more and more disconnected from the needs of the residents. David, you mentioned earlier that the current Councilman Ben Gray, when there were calls to defund the police, he said we have a gang war going on and that is just not what's gonna happen. And so how do you three plan to consistently engage constituents while in office? And we will start with David, then go Jonathan and Juanita.
So I'm gonna start off with the old technique by continuously having town hall meetings, by continuously having community meetings to actually be able to continuously engage with the people as well. Also, any ordinance I propose, I want to amend, I want to repeal. I'm also going to let it be known not only on my website, but I'm also going to let it be known on my social media accounts, so people can be able to see the transparency, so people can be able to see exactly what I'm doing and what I'm moving on. Anything I'm voting for, I'm going to let people know. Anything I'm voting against, I'm going to let people know as well. So as far as being able to stay connected with the people right now, you got to meet the people where they're at right now, and that's on social media, and that's for the people that's off social media, continuously be able to have those town hall community meetings. That's something that Ben Gray doesn't do. You don't know what he has going on because he's not communicating with the people. I've been trying to call his phone for the past 3 months to try to deliver him 3 city ordinances that I actually typed up myself. One of them being reparations, actually. If you look at Evanston, I'm gonna say it's Evanston, Illinois, their city council passed reparations, and that was something that I wanted to get passed in my city. Never heard back, never got no phone call back, no nothing. So I actually got to talk to him about that on Tuesday when I go down to the city council meeting. Because since he doesn't want to meet with the people where we are, I'm gonna go meet him where he's at, and that's downtown at the legislative chambers. So that's pretty much it.
All right, so along the lines of what David was saying, I'm not gonna say that politics has gotten more disconnected from people. I'm gonna say that politicians have. So without the people that we represent, there wouldn't be a need to hold these offices and in essence, no one to fight for. So no matter what the reason for the lapse in representation occurred, we have to actually get back to hearing the representatives of our district. So we have many avenues to stay in touch with constituents that seem to have gone by the wayside over the past few cycles. Again, like I said, I don't like to call people out, in that aspect, but there have been no town halls. I know nothing about town halls. Even with the budget hearing, we knew that it was something that was contentious. As the District 2 representative, knowing that this was the loudest district as far as the policing was concerned, that should have been one of his first agenda items was, hey, I'm gonna hold a town hall meeting, let me actually hear what the residents have to say, instead of coming back at the city council meeting saying he did cite that he talked to specific people, but specific people don't run your community, the entire community runs it. So we have to get back to reaching those on the ground, that ear to the ground mentality. I've already had a phone line set up for my campaign. I've got an email account set up for my campaign. I've got a social media page set up for my campaign. So that is how I would keep in touch with my constituents. I said I'm always a call away. There's never a time that we should not be able to be reached as a city council representative. Taking it a step further, even with all the violence that has been going on in North Omaha, if you are that representative of that district, then you should be down there at those sites and at those scenes interacting with those people saying, we won't stand for this, we won't have this. Where's that representative at when this is happening behind closed doors, behind the scenes? You should be out front as a leader, making sure that your face is being seen and you're letting it be known that we will not tolerate these types of situations in our community. That's how you get back reconnected with the people as far as the politics are going, or as far as just community health and community well-being is overall. So if I do become the representative for the district, I will continue to have those town hall meetings, or I will revamp them and get them started back up again. And I'll also be out front ensuring that people know who the representative is, because I'm sure there's a ton of people that don't have any idea who Ben Gray even is, which is horrible if you're the one representing them and you're the elected official for that district. So you have to get out, you have to be seen, you have to be known in order for the constituency to actually believe that you are looking out for their best interests.
As city council, I would continue to do the very things that I already do as president of Long School and 24th Street Corridor, by having monthly meetings, engaging community. I would also hire an assistant so that my office would have 8 hours a day, or at least 3 times a week, coverage so that the constituents in District 2 would have availability to reach me. I would also, I'm sorry, I forgot I had my mask on, I'm sorry. I would also hire interns. I would go to the college, UNO, Metro, as well as Creighton, and hire interns to help me keep my eye on the pulse in the community. Those interns would also learn about District 2. They would be the ears in terms of making that connection with me and District 2. They would also learn what it all entails to be a politician. They would have the ability to develop themselves and possibly even advance to having their own small business as they mature. I would develop a trainer program. These are all things that would help District 2, because at the end of the day, District 2 suffers because there are not enough opportunities as it relates to being an entrepreneur. That would be my recipe for this. Thank you.
Yeah. This next question is for Jonathan. Council District 2 encompasses 2 state legislatures. So we have Senator Justin Wayne, we also have Senator Ernie Chambers, who are both living within Council District 2. In what ways would you partner with senators to ensure that Omaha and the state of Nebraska is responding to the needs of this community?
So in researching that question, I actually realized that District 2 encompasses 4 legislative districts. We have Senator Wayne and Chambers, as you said, for their respective districts, but we also have Anthony Vargas and Megan Hunt actually have parts of District 2 also. So when I made the decision to run for office, actually one of the first people I reached out to was Terrell McKinney. The day I opened up my account, I reached out and I went to Taste North Omaha and I introduced myself, because I knew that building a good working relationship with the individuals that you could potentially be working with was essential to helping the community and having those concerns addressed. Because we all have a common goal, which is making District 2 a better district for everybody. So I also want the residents to be able to see how that relationship translates to their concerns being taken up to the state level. So if I have a concern, such as the police reform bill that Justin Wayne is working on right now, I could go to him as a representative and take my constituents' ideas on what needs to be seen or what we would like to be seen as far as police reform is concerned, so that way when he takes it up to Lincoln, we can actually get that legislature passed into law. The same thing as far as my proposal for the Capital District. Anthony Vargas is the legislator that is in charge of the Capital District, so anything that I want to get passed through, whether it's increasing the entertainment tax or whether it's trying to propose the legalization of gambling through the Capital District, Anthony Vargas would be the one that would have to proposed that at the state level as the legislator for that area. So it's definitely important to build those working relationships with the legislators that you're going to have in those districts, so that way the entire community can benefit from what you're trying to do as their council, as their city council representative.
David, this next question is for you. City Council has seen its most divisive moments since the pandemic has started with the George Floyd Rebellion and COVID-19. Many of the council members have unapologetically dismissed the concerns of their constituents to move forward with their own special interests. How do you plan to hold your fellow council members accountable for bad policy decisions?
Well, the devil, when he does something, he thinks what he's doing is good, but only a spiritual person, a person of an actual higher frequency power can actually be able to see through that and know what he's doing is wrong. So what they're doing is they think what they're doing is right. Ben Gray thinks what he's doing is right by not reallocating 1.2% of the budget to mental health, etc., and said that he doesn't agree with it. Jean Stoffard thinks it's right that she doesn't want to have anything go to mental health. She doesn't want to put any more money to it. She's actually saying that she will veto it. So the easiest way to be able to handle that situation, especially if I'm on a city council board, what I would actually do is I will submit 200 to 300 resolutions, random resolutions, just to hold up those city council meetings for 24 to 30 hours. I would have now, all of a sudden, I want to amend 1,000 random ordinances, even if it's something small and minor, just to get it out there on the floor. So now, okay, now you want to do bad policy. I spoke to you off the record. I'm going to speak to you on the record. And if you don't want to continuously, have our neighborhood gentrified, or if you want to continuously not do what your constituents is asking you of doing, then I'm going to do everything in my power to disrupt. Okay, and that's what I'm going to be there to do, is be able to disrupt and also be able to communicate back with the people to let them know, hey, this is what's going on. Show up to these city council meetings. I'll have a city council meeting to condemn the green eggs and ham book. Okay, that will be one of my resolutions. Just something real random. Get up there, even if you don't care. Be a proponent and be an opponent on the same resolution. Let's drag it out. Let's have this meeting go for 24 to 30 hours, and let's let them know that the people in the community doesn't want that to happen. And then they're going to have to either realize that, okay, do I want to spend 2 to 3 hours in here? Do I want to spend 24 to 30 hours in here and not have any time to spend with my family, and then go home tired, like how we had them doing back at the city council meeting when it was adjusting the budget? Had them down there until midnight, dang near falling asleep on the seat. So that's the type of stuff that I will have to do. As far as anything else, there's really nothing else I can pretty much do. Once the devil's mind is set, the devil's mind is set, until you pretty much just let him know and wake him up that this is what we need to do. Even Ernie Chambers, bless him, even Ernie Chambers is still out protesting. He was just out protesting how Pete Ricketts vetoed the hair discrimination bill that passed through state legislator. He vetoed it. So the only thing he could be able to do, he can't go to Pete Ricketts and say, oh, you better do this, or you better not, you better, let it go through, or whatever. The only thing he could do is go out and go tell the people, hey, this didn't happen. Pete Ricketts is a racist.
Juanita, this is your question. Executive sessions for city council are one of the most non-transparent methods of work that they do. In the interest of transparency, how will you let your constituents know what discussions are happening behind closed doors that the public is not open to attending?
I would create a newsletter and provide that information to my constituents. As much information that I could reveal without being out of line, I would provide that information via newsletter and also social media. Again, the tools that I would have in place to ensure that I could do this would be the hiring of an assistant, and then also the help of the interns.
Okay, the next question is for all three of you. And we can go Jonathan, Juanita, David. Actually, let's go Jonathan, David, Juanita. No, you just said it. Jonathan, Juanita, David. All right. So money from special interest groups has plagued local government for years. Councilman Ben Gray has taken money from groups like Omaha Police Officers Association and the Omaha Landlords Association. Can you promise that you will never take money from special interest groups like these? Why or why not?
So special interest groups are always going to be involved in politics. As a matter of fact, I feel that it's important to make sure that we are connected with these groups. They're the organizations that have formed to make sure that large groups of individuals can be heard on common ground. With that being said, I cannot promise that I won't take donations from special interest groups. But what I would do is make sure that any monetary amount that I did receive didn't come with expected special treatment or advantages to those groups. I've had discussions with the Police Officers Union president on some specific police reform ideas, but I'm also in a group that works alongside the president of the Black Agenda Alliance. I'm a member of the VFW, and I'm a Prince Hall Mason. So if we all have the same vision to make our community stronger, I don't see a problem with receiving donations from any of these organizations. Again, that just has to come with a strict understanding that the agenda is for the residents in the district and the city, not to enhance or embrace any specific interest that they may have. At the end of the day, that's what the entire campaign is about, is making our community stronger. There's a lot of work to be done, and whether I'm working alongside the Police Officers Association, Ms. Johnson with the Law School Association, the Omaha Education Association, Black Firefighters, or any other organization, the community has to come first.
So when looking at if taking money from special interest groups actually work for or against the community, let's look at our current city council member, Ben Gray. When you look at the money, when you look at how much money he collected throughout his whole campaign up to 2017, he collected $165,000. Now, where did this money come from? It came from Susie Buffett, it came from the Buffett Foundation, it came from Warren Buffett himself, it came from associates with Warren Buffett, and it came from the Omaha Police Department, it came from landlords. Now, when you look at a lot of these groups, these are the same people that's gentrifying and buying up the whole community, kicking out our business, starting up early learning childhood development centers, that's actually shutting down our black-owned daycares in our own community, okay? And he has no choice but to follow through. Frederick Douglass said Marcus Messiah Garvey said, the hand that pays is the hand that rules. So the people that really rule North Omaha is not Ben Gray. It's really the Buffetts. It's really the Omaha Police Department. It's really landlords that's buying up, being able to come into our community and be slumlords all they want. So to answer that question as plain as possible, I will not be taking money, and I already announced it last year when I announced my run. I will not be taking any money from any special interest group. I could care less of who you are. I don't want no endorsements. I don't want anything, because I already backed my campaign out of my own money, $30,000. I'm already making sure I can have billboards set, yard signs set, t-shirts set, everything set, TV commercials, YouTube commercials, everything I'm gonna be able to back and do myself. And that's how they get a politician, get into this system, and then they end up selling out. They come in with good intentions. And then it's like, hey, if you really wanna win this race, if you really wanna outbeat Ben Gray, we need to fund your campaign X amount of money. They get that funding, but right when you get in there, we need this passed, we need this done, and by the time your 4 years is up, damn, I did nothing for my community. And you're like, look, I gentrified my neighborhood, I destroyed my own neighborhood by allowing you guys to do what I want to do. Look, I'm not going to do that anymore. Oh, really? Then they go set up the next candidate. Then they boost up his campaign, and then they trash him, and then they make sure they can be able to come back into your neighborhood and gentrify it. Look at Ben Gray, 2017, $165,000. That's how much he collected for his campaign. Now, whoever seen a Ben Gray billboard, yard sign, t-shirt, anything, okay? He bought but what did he buy in 2018? A house for $166,000. Hold on. You tell me you collected $165,000, but the next year you buy a house for $166,000? The only thing he had set up for it was a Facebook campaign page that's still up to this day, and then he had a website set up for it, votebengray.com. that he only spent $12 for 1 year, but didn't even pay it so he could have it in his name and then let it go. How do I know that? Because I now own VoteBenGray.com. If you go to VoteBenGray.com, it actually goes to VoteDavidMitchell.com. Go look it up.
Special interest groups. As a leader, you have to have a strong value system, a strong foundation. People should know who you are. They should know what you will stand for and what you're not for. So for me, if I were to take money for a special interest group, they would have a solid foundation as to whether or not they would be able to get me to sell out. I grew up in East St. Louis. I have a very solid background. I believe right is right, wrong is wrong. And there is no way that I would do something that would cause harm to other people in my community. That's just not gonna happen. So anyone that promoted me or asked me to take money from them, they would know from the beginning that I'm not going to do something that's going to harm my community. That is foremost the most important thing for me in any decision that I make.
Okay, then that concludes our transparency portion of the conversation. So now we are going to open it up to press poll, and please raise your hand if you have a question that you would like to ask from the press. Perfect. I'll get you a microphone.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tyler. Thank you all for being here. I am a constituent of District 2. I have lived in District 2 for several years now. We talked a lot about the changes that we could be making to the budget to make the budget more participatory. In order for any of those changes to take place, that would require changes to the city charter. The city charter comes under a review in 2003. That would be the second year of your term. What is the process for reviewing and amending the city charter? And what changes would you make to make that budget process more participatory? I would like each of you to answer, please.
So to start off, I believe the best thing that we need to be able to do as a city council member is to be able to amend that ordinance to make sure we can add in that participatory budget for the people to be able to give their input on how the city's money is spent. And to be honest, we all represent the city. So if I'm paying sales and use tax, if I'm paying property tax, that's my money going towards something. If I don't want my money, a big portion of my money going to the Omaha Police Department, I should have a say so. So I believe, and I'm not 100% sure because I haven't read that part of the Omaha City Charter about what it would take to really be able to get the participatory budget added in. But that would be something I would definitely fight for on my second term, on my second year of being in office, if it does happen, to make sure we can be able to do exactly what our constituents want. Even if it's something I don't agree with, it was still, if the constituents speak up, 51% votes, yes, I want this done, then I believe that's what needs to happen.
So the way that Omaha works as far as the legislative branch goes is Omaha is on a strong mayor system, which means that if there are 4 votes or less on any type of amendment, then it can still be vetoed by the mayor. If the council votes 5 votes or above, that makes the bill or the amendment unvetoable by the mayor. So that's the biggest problem that we're coming to now with this 4-3 as far as the budget was concerned. If we could have gotten one more city council person to agree to increase that budget to take the funds out of the cash reserves, then the mayor would have been stuck and would not have been able to veto that bill. So as far as the participatory budget comes, if there was an amendment proposed to get that as part of what was going on with the residents, and we decided to have participatory budgeting as a thing within the city, I'd have to work with the other council members to ensure that we could get those 5 votes, so that the mayor wasn't able to veto that, and we could get that put on the, we can get that through the next meetings and get that approved. So when the next city charter comes out, we can have that listed as the next budget hearing. We will have participatory budgeting, and we have to find a way to institute that, whether we did the town halls or whether we just had a special session of the city council saying, okay, you can come forward and speak about how you want to participate in the next budget hearing that we do have.
And I believe your name is David? Tyler. Tyler, first I would familiarize myself with that charter, and then I would work with the other city council members to see or to gather their consensus about what's being proposed. And then I would see what compromises or what synergies that could be done so that the interests of District 2 were at the forefront. So I would do your basic business strategy, working with within the confines of the system to make sure that if there is an opportunity for me to implement public opinion or support, that I would be able to do so. But first I would have to familiarize myself with the charter. I would then have to work within my fellow members, and then use various strategies to come up with a plan to make it effective, whereby I could include public opinion.
Next question?
Luis Jimenez. I've heard you guys put forth criticism against Ben Gray, and we appreciate what you have to say about representative government. My question is, knowing that he does have support in North Omaha because he's the incumbent, he's been reelected, what would you ask, or what would you tell his supporters, especially the primary supporters that have consistently supported him in spite of the various criticism that can be pointed to, that they come out and support Ben Gray on election day? So what would you tell them in order to switch their minds?
Well, I would just ask them a question as well. What has he really done for you, and what has he really done for the community? I will then go back and I will point back to things like the Zachary Bear here situation and say, do you agree with what he said about the Omaha police chief, or do you disagree? Do you agree with this, or do you disagree? Do you agree with him putting that Walmart in there that's secretly stashing away to make sure we don't have access to healthy foods? And then every time I go in there, the healthy foods section is always closed off. Sometimes, a lot of times it's open, but I went in there about last week, the healthy foods was also closed off. They said, oh, we had a power outage, but the Tony's Pizza was wide open. So I would ask them, do you think this is right? And that's the best way to be able to garner someone's support, especially if someone's been stuck on that person for so long. And then I would let them know my point of views and what I see what needs to happen, especially with economics and education, as that's our road back to liberation. But the main thing I would have to let them know is, do you think he is in the best interest of his constituents, or do you think he's in the best interest of just himself and the people that pay him?
If it were me, I would, if I'm gonna talk to someone and I want them to appreciate my opinion or what my recommendation might be, I would find out what we have in common. I would appeal to that, and then I would approach them with some situations where I felt that Council Member Gray could have done a better job at addressing that issue. I would give them some examples that they could have, that they could agree with me that the decision that he made was not in the best interest of this community, more importantly, of Omaha. The only way that you can get someone to sway someone's opinion is to find something commonality, find something that you both agree in common, and then, you know, do the research and find out what Ben Gray or whoever the opponent is, what they didn't do, that didn't mirror or match what that person that you're talking to was opposed to. So I would do the research first. I would find out what it is that that person and I have in common and we could agree on, and then I would bring those examples whereby Ben Gray or whoever the opponent is did just the opposite. And I would explore that, and I would beat that drum that is, you know, is this, you know, why would you continue to vote for a situation like that if they continue to do that?
So again, I'm very analytical as opposed to emotional. So everything comes down to facts and numbers and what you can see. With this coronavirus pandemic going on, what do you see all day? Numbers, 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 numbers. And that's what it is. So when Ben Gray says, oh, I put $700 million into North Omaha, he can technically stand on that because yes, there's probably $700 million worth of development that has been done down there in the Capital District. But then in the same breath, he says, oh, I've got this 24th Street development going. But when you go out on 24th Street and you look what's been developed on 24th Street. So you have to take the things that he's done and you actually have to look at them and say, numbers. What has he done? What are the facts? The schools. If you look at the schools, you can go on the Nebraska State Education Association website right now. You can pull up Howard Kennedy. Howard Kennedy is the worst school in the state of Nebraska. So how do you have a school in your district that is the worst school in the state of Nebraska? So what are you doing as far as education? I know there was a meeting that he had a couple years ago where he was yelling about getting the Walmart put in. And yes, that is something that he was able to do for the district. But as David was saying here, what is Walmart doing to support the district? I mean, I'm sure that they've employed jobs, yes, but as far as healthy options and things like that, what are you standing on as far as numbers? What is the obesity rate in your district? What is your graduation rate? What are you actually doing as far as developments being done? What are you doing with the roads and those types of infrastructure things? So if somebody's saying, oh, I support Ben Gray, just tell them look at the facts, look at the numbers, and actually see what's been done over the last 12 years or so that he has been in office already. What is he really doing for the constituents?
This question comes from online from Tamika Meese. She asks, my question is for all the candidates and is in regard to them announcing they are running for this position. Do you think that announcing prematurely will confuse supporters and potential voters during the general election? Also, since the position you plan on running for isn't up until election of May of next year, what are you all doing for the community at this time, and what do you plan on doing until then?
So that's actually a very good question. I actually announced my run for city council last year. The reason why you want to start early is because look what happens when you start right in February. Look what happens when you start right at March. They don't have enough time to advertise, they don't have enough time to get their names out, and nobody really knows who they are. So what happens is they end up falling under. So it's best to start early and get the job done. For example, I treat this like how I would treat a business. If I was opening up a business, whenever I find my location, I'm opening it up here in North Omaha, I am going to advertise, even if it's opened up a year later, I'll advertise that location a year early. So as soon as that business opens up, we can make sure we can be able to have the consumers coming in to buy our products. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to have enough time to be able to advertise, let people know who we are and what we stand for. What I'm doing right now is I'm still working on my nonprofit organization, Bright Future Teens, still trying to get more people set up in my board of directors. And then I'm also still doing things, just basic things to the community as far as donating to nonprofit organizations. I got something set up by the end of this year for foster children. My mother was also was a foster mom for years, and a lot of these kids would come in with just the clothes that they had on their back. So a lot of times they didn't have any resources or any money to be able to go out and go purchase those clothes. So I still do that to this day, even though she's not a foster parent anymore. I still go out and go find these foster families to make sure they can have enough clothes and then have some type of entertainment. And if they need a job, come work at Gamers, and then we'll get you hired, things of that nature, just to make sure our community can be able to stay afloat.
So as far as announcing early, my reasoning behind it was kind of like the same as David's. I've lived in Omaha, where I was born and raised in Omaha, but I haven't lived here in quite a few years. So as far as the community work, as Ms. Johnson's done, she's been here doing community work since 2011. 2011, I was overseas in Germany doing, making sure that my family was taken care of. So that's what I was doing back in 2011. But since I have been back in Omaha, the things I've done is I coach youth football for the Junior Huskies, so I'm a coach for that. And I'm also part of a group, and just Thursday night we were called over to where a potential shooting may have been occurring, and we were able to intervene in that and stop that before it happened. And all BS aside, honestly, what we did is we got the moms to sit down. Your son's talking this crap. Your son's talking this crap. Y'all, the moms, cut it off at the neck, and then we can try to stop this from going on. But in that same breath, there were she got 5 boys, and the third one is 11 years old. So I looked at him, sized him up, and I coached 6th grade football. So that's what I did. I was like, hey, how old are you? I'm in the 6th grade. Well, guess what? Monday you come to football practice with me. And that's exactly what we do. We got the group together. They're gonna sponsor him to pay his entrance fees to be able to play that sport. And we're gonna try to reach him before he gets to a level where he may escalate or gets lost in the system or has other things going on. So a lot of organizations, let's say you may not see these people out front, but it's like, does a lion roar first, or is it just on you all of a sudden and then you're trying to figure out what's going on? So I want to do my work kind of behind the scenes, make sure that things are being taken care of before we start discussing, what we have done or what we will do. Let's just do the work and grind and get it done.
That was a very good question regarding would announcing our candidacy for city council would somehow be confusing to those running for election this coming November. So I echo with that concern, and I've made intentional decisions regarding my announcement. For example, when I opened up and introduced myself, I said that it was my intent to run. The city and the way the policy is made, it does put all of us at a disadvantage by putting this barrier for us to put our application in December. When we put that application in December, that gives us a small window of opportunity to become recognizable to this district. So yes, I'm making sure that everything that I do doesn't conflict with the message for November, but at the same time, I'm doing small incremental suggestions that I'm running so that my name is out there. And as far as me doing things consistently or doing things for the community, I've already done that. I will continue to do that. I've been a community leader since 2011, so nothing will change up or down in terms of my community involvement. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Manny. I know a few of you. So my question is, well, let me preface it by saying this. This community deserves more than to just recycle bad leadership. So my question is, are you open to basically disclosing your written and electronic communications with city officials and city staff for the last 5 years by October 31st of this year? Any of you can start.
So I'm absolutely open to disclosing any electronic communications that I would have had with the city. At this point, I have not had any electronic communication with the city as far as running as a council person or that's concerned, but I have been in touch with several individuals trying to amass as much research as I can in order to be able to fulfill this role to the best of my abilities. So if I was to communicate, or once I do have to start communicating with these individuals, and yeah, that's what transparency is. You know, there's no reason, if you're doing things properly and professionally, then there's no reason to not be transparent about how you're going about taking care of things or handling things.
Well, if I released that, you would just see about 100 phone calls to Ben Gray, and all of them was unanswered. So not only his cell phone, but also down to the city, you know, down to the Civic Center. I called everywhere trying to get a hold of him as far as electronically, because he is our representative. But as far as being transparent, I will be willing to release any form of communication that I ever have with the city, or even if I am elected, to be able to release something like that, because as Brother Jonathan was just saying right here, that's very important to being transparent with the people in the community. If you got something to hide, then you're not going to want to show all electronic communication. You're not going to want to release text messages, release emails, and things of that nature. And then I believe too, whatever's in the dark will also come in the light. So it just takes that one person who wants to hack into your account and so like, hey, look, he was doing backdoor deals here, he was doing backdoor deals there. So I would rather keep everything as professional and out in the open as possible to let the people know that I'm serious about this position.
And simply put, yes.
Any other questions?
As Omaha has continued to grow, we have been aggressively annexing pieces of land, mostly in South and Southwest Omaha. But I think we've all lived in North Omaha for a while. You drive around, you turn, and suddenly you find yourself stuck on a weird dirt road, or in a neighborhood where all of the roads are dirt and unmaintained. If you visit the county assessor's website, you can see that most of these areas are unannexed SIDs, some of which have existed in North Omaha since 1970. Jonathan, when you talk about getting people to build neighborhoods or housing, and then how they're going to protect those investments, we have these areas of North Omaha that were developed so that they could be incorporated by the city. And we see businesses not protecting those investments, as those places have not been annexed since the 70s and have just been set there kind of languishing and rotting. Also, this creates communities in North Omaha where people are paying sales tax and other things, other taxes to the city, and then they're not getting representation. So if you do become one of our council members, how would you very aggressively focus on ensuring that these parts of North Omaha do become incorporated into the city and receive the representation that they deserve? Because I don't see anybody else talking about it.
So as far as annexation goes, it's pretty funny that you asked me that question. So my parents actually live out in Cunningham, which was annexed within the last few years. And ever since they've been annexed, there has been a decrease in services, I believe, with that, because the city cannot support what is currently annexing. They're lapsing in the police. Like I said, I never see police officers out there, and I've heard it's not a high crime area, so we really don't need police out there, but that's wrong, because if there are police that are supposed to be in the area, and if you annex them as a city function, then they need to be out there. Snow removal, the county used to take care of the snow out there, but since they've been annexed to the city, it's gotten later and later into the day. Trash removal, there never used to be trash blowing out there in that neighborhood until, again, the city took it over, and now there's trash blowing around the neighborhood. So as far as aggressively annexing, we'd have to find a focal point. So we'd have to find one specific place that is under this ID that has not been annexed, take them first, and then spread out from there. Start building outwards. So kind of pinpoint a target and start spreading outwards, so that way we can develop the entire areas that are around there. But as far as trying to get everything aggressively annexed at once, you wouldn't be able to do that, because we'd run into that same problem. I'd have to look into that a little bit further, but I don't know what the police routes through those unannexed areas are, or who even services them, which also would is the wrong answer, because if they're within the city limits, then they deserve city services. Unless the residents don't want to be annexed, then I'd have to find out why exactly that would be also. But we cannot have areas of our city that aren't annexed and want to be annexed that aren't receiving the appropriate amount of attention they need. We just have to focus on one particular one at a time, get that going, see what worked with that area or what didn't work with that area, and then move on to the next one as we progress the annexation topic is going on.
And I would just like to echo what the brother just said right here. As far as doing like a step-by-step process to make sure we can be able to handle whatever area that we annex to the city of Omaha, to make sure we can be able to handle it, be able to handle the snow removal, be able to handle the potholes when they get set up in that community, as we didn't handle, you know, about a year ago in our own city, to make sure whatever we can be able to do can get handled. And that also has to go back to the Omaha city budget. When you're dealing with the budget and you're giving 37.9% of that budget to the Omaha Police Department, we have really no money because 5.1% of that budget is going to public works. So we don't have enough funding going to our public works where we can be able to make sure our roads stay in order, to make sure if we do take it over, those dirt roads were, and I was just in one of those areas just last week. You know, I got out the car at my friend's house. We're talking about some political stuff that's going on in the neighborhood, and literally every car that drives down the road, I'm breathing in dust, I'm breathing in rocks. I feel like I'm going to die, you know, just because there's so much pollution and so much crap going in the air from them dirt roads. And you know, but his area wasn't even annexed yet. So that's why we got to make sure whatever area we take over, we got to make sure whoever that council member who's going to control that annex area actually cares enough about that area to make sure that we can be able to appropriate funds to it and not take away funds and put more funds back into the Omaha Police Department. There's no reason why the city of Omaha is receiving about $1.2 billion plus federal funds on top of that a year, and we're not putting no money into these areas that we can annex and take over and be able to build a better community in our neighborhood. So, like I said, just kind of echo what the brother just said. I don't want to say too much more because he kind of hit it right on the head with that.
I would say that we would have to study and properly analyze the area before we even consider it. I mean, we would need to do a lot of research first. You would want to have a committee look at that area and analyze it properly before you even consider annexing it. You wouldn't know what the infrastructure needs are, what the requirements are. There's a lot of things that you would need to do before you make a decision to annex something. That's what I would do first, is do some research and then properly execute a plan to incorporate another space.
My name is Jonathan. Two candidates on the stage, Juanita and Jonathan, stated they were willing to take donations from special interest groups so long as they would not negatively or inappropriately influence the decisions they are making for their constituents. What guarantees can you two make to the community that this will be the case, and can you share any goals you have that may upset a potential special interest donor?
So this all comes back to transparency. If I was to take money from a special interest group, I would more than willing get that as a notarized agreement saying, you donated $5,000 to my campaign. This is what I will do as far as the community is concerned. This is what I won't do as far as the community is concerned. And I'll put it on file down at the clerk's office. I mean, if that's what needs to be done as far as that transparency is concerned. And then what was the other half of the question? I'm sorry.
What would you potentially do that would upset a potential special interest donor?
So back to the entire police thing. To say the Omaha Police Department or the Omaha Police Officers Association was willing to donate to my campaign. I do have several police reform issues that I am concerned about. Like I said, I've talked to the union president. I talked to him about potentially ending qualified immunity. That was one of the things that I was going to speak about with police reform, and he kind of retorted back a response that he gave me where he didn't see it as feasible. So I went back, I did some research, and I found that Colorado actually did a reform bill where they didn't end qualified immunity, but they made it so that if they were found guilty or the police were found liable doing something they had no business doing or that they shouldn't have done within the line of work, then that person could still be individually sued. So you're not ending qualified immunity for the entire department, but you're introducing legislation that allows that potential offender individually to still be sued. So I don't know how that would sit with the Police Officers Association, but if everything's about meeting in the middle. So we've got these calls to end qualified immunity. The union may not be willing to do that, but again, if I can come back and say, okay, you're not willing to do that, but how about we meet here where if the individual gets caught doing something they're not supposed to be doing, then they're still civilly able to be sued. I think that would help, because I don't know how that would sit with them, but that would be something that would be talked about in that discussion as far as you're donating to my campaign, you want to donate to me, this is something that I'm going to present, how would you feel about that?
So I would look at the goals and objectives of that organization. If those goals and objectives are in line with what my value system is, that would be the first measurement that I would take in terms of whether or not I would accept money from that special interest group. For example, the Ku Klux Klan. Would I take money from them? Perhaps not. I would basically say no, I would not take money from them because they've already demonstrated to me that they're not in alignment with what I believe in.
Any final questions? All right, here we go.
Good afternoon. I'm Tamika Meese. I was Tamika Renee on Facebook. I have a question about working with the entities that have things in place now. So we're talking about, defunding the police, and we all know that the mayor, is vetoing that, and that special funding that the city council president wanted to set aside for like mental health services and things of that nature will most likely not happen with our current budget. Even without taking it from the police fund or using special funds, it's most likely not gonna happen. So my thing is, we all have to work together. So with the Omaha Police Department, they do have, special mental health services that is built within the department. A lot of people in the community don't even know about it. They don't know if you're having a dispute with someone that has mental health issues and you need that situation controlled, that you can call 911 and you can request special, I think they're called MIT officers, where they're trained in mental health, and they'll come to your location, diffuse the situation, and if they can't do it, there is a 24-hour on-call mental health therapist that will come out and assess that individual in the situation. A lot of people don't know that. I think that we can build on that if we can't find a common ground with defunding the police, department with our city budget. We can all find a common ground and work with what we have until we can get to that next step. And so that's what I'm looking at when I'm, looking at the candidates. And I will be honest, I don't live in this district. I serve, and I'm a servant leader. I serve in this district, but I don't live in this district. But when I look at, a leader that's gonna represent this district, I wanna know, are you gonna be combative at all times, or are you gonna, be able to work together? Because at the end of the day, that's what we have to do in order to make change happen. So when I hear, and I'm speaking for myself, and I know that there's others that, feel the same way. I don't wanna sit around and hear about what Ben Gray is not doing, what he hasn't done. I'll be the first to admit, I think he's had his run. I think we're not dealing with the same Ben Gray that we were back in his kaleidoscope days and what he was doing for the community. Somewhere along the line, where there was someone filling his pockets, he changed. I'll be honest and say that publicly. I feel like he changed. That can happen to any one of you in that position of leadership. So what I'm looking for and what other people are looking for is, are you able to put the ego aside, put the animosity aside, and let's work together and not remain divided? And also, what are your intentions? How do you intend on doing that if you were to go into this position? Thank you.
So that's definitely what my platform is based off of. If you ever see anything, it's building a stronger unity, with the building and the unity being the largest portions of it. Personally, so I've been a public servant my entire life. I joined the military at 17 years old, and that was 2003. So literally, I was in Iraq in 2004 dealing with IEDs, small arms fire, and all that, based on a choice that I made to make a better community, and it wasn't even here, but it was over there. And the same thing, I was in Afghanistan in 2013. The mission there, we were always preached hearts and minds. You're here to be a public servant. You're here to assist with what they need. You're here to help out with what they want you to do, as far as, and not really be combative. So when you're saying put that ego aside, I definitely want to make sure that I don't project that I have that type of level of ego, because my realm has always been as a servant. So that's why part of the reason also why I chose to get into the city council. Like I said, I was planning on taking the LSAT. I know, like Terrell, I was going to go to law school, and I was going to be a public defender. I get funds from the VA every year, so when you talk about money and funding, I'm set. The VA takes care of me, and the military takes care of me on that level. So I'm able to put myself in those positions where I can assist other people without having to worry about what's coming back to me, either monetarily or in any other form or fashion. So what I want to do to make sure that I keep the constituents informed, or keep that ego down, is make sure that stay transparent and make sure they understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Like I said, Ben Gray, I wasn't here during his run, and I didn't see him on that end, but I see some of the see what's coming back on this side of it. So I want to make sure that we can catch it before it gets any worse, and try to remedy it and try to fix it for the residents of the community.
It's real important for this community to work together as a team. That's key in order for us to advance for the future, for our families, and in order for us to see any kind of economic growth. My role as 24th Street Corridor President was primarily based with that in mind. Every move that we make as a team is contingent upon what's good for all the businesses on 24th Street Corridor. So as a leader of that organization, when things are brought to my attention that a decision needs to be made, I look at how it will impact all the business owners, not 1, 2, or 3, all. One example of when we were faced in terms of making a decision was last year, Juneteenth. A proposal was brought to the Corridor Alliance to participate and have a community engagement outside of just the parade. Normally, NAACP has a parade up and down 30th Street for Juneteenth. After that parade, there is nothing to do. And so we were presented an opportunity to expand that, so that when that parade was over, the community could engage in something bigger and kind of continue with the celebration. I met with NAACP and other members that had put this on, and they shared with me their concern that we were not at the table in October when they started their plans, that they felt that we would somehow snuff them out, that we would make them smaller. That information alone caused us to not do that, and we did, because we did not want to cause any distinction between anybody in this community. Our motto is to work together. So I hope that answered your question.
That's actually a very good question, and to answer it and kind of echo what Brother Jonathan was talking about as well. As far as having unity, that's the main thing and purpose that we need to make sure we can have a strong community and a strong city as well amongst the people, because we got to make sure as leaders, as servants, as people of the community, we can have a unity even though if we disagree on something. I've met with Jean Stallhart, totally disagree with 95% of the things that she do, but I will still sit down and have a meeting with her in unity. With Ben Gray, I've been trying to have a meeting with him for months now. Won't answer my phone calls, won't do anything. I met up with him multiple times at the radio station. Hey, when can we sit down and have a meeting? I got some ordinances. I wanted to have you review it and see what you think, to see if you can be able to get it submitted in and see what other council members will be in agreement with this ordinance, so we can be able to get it passed for the betterment of our community. So, I've tried to reach out. To be honest, Black people have been trying to reach out for 400 plus years, and nothing has came out of it. So I think it's about time for us to stop praying on our knees and to start to pray on our legs, like how Frederick Douglass do, and start to come out unapologetic and say, hey, look, we're tired of our community being gentrified. We're tired of our youth not being educated and going to public schools and being miseducation, coming out just to get locked up by the teacher's husband. Okay, and we need to be serious, and and like I said, and also keep egos aside. Like, I feel better to you, so I'm gonna do this my way, and if you don't like it, then that's it. We need to set that aside. Even if we can come to a table, like how Brother Jonathan said earlier, and then have some type of common agreement where we can be able to meet in the middle on that. For the betterment of our community, I will be willing to do that as well. So that's one of the things I will be willing to do. I'll be willing to sit down at the table with the devil himself to make sure our community, which is what you're going to be doing in politics anyways, to make sure our community can be able to grow and succeed, and make sure we have another line of people behind us as well.
Let's give our candidates a hand. Thank you, Juanita, Jonathan, and David, for coming here today, and thank each of you for coming out. If you are not in tune with Culxr House, more of these events specifically will be taking place, especially leading up to the election. And so please follow them on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date. We hope to see you again at events like this in the future, and it never hurts to tell a friend to join you as well. All right, we all have to be civically engaged. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good job.
How are you? Good to see ya. Yes, this is all